Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Entertainment News. Yellowstone fans rejoice. We now know what's going to be happening next for the characters in our beloved series after the series finale this coming Sunday. Yellowstone universe expands with offshoot starring Kelly Reilly and Cole Hauser, otherwise known as Beth and Rip. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, but before we do, we are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We need 110 more subscribers in the next 2 weeks to get us there, so please hit that subscribe button, hit the alert bell, like, comment, send supers, or become a member for $2.99 a month. If you do comment, keep it friendly, keep it on topic, don't make it personal. All right then, Yellowstone universe expands with offshoot starring Kelly Reilly and Cole Hauser. The upcoming season 5 finale of Yellowstone will not be the end of the Dutton clan story. I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen. Series standouts Kelly Reilly and Cole Hauser have closed deals to lead a spinoff series reprising their roles as Beth Dutton and Rip Wheeler, respectively, sources tell Deadline. Taylor Sheridan, the mastermind behind Yellowstone and its ever-expanding universe, is working on the creative for the new show, which will likely feature other cast members from the Mothership series alongside Reilly and Hauser. Led by Yellowstone characters played by the same actors in the same present-day time frame, the new offshoot shares the most DNA with the Mothership of any shows in the Yellowstone universe to date, which explains why it will be the first spin-off to carry Yellowstone in the title, sources say. And I think that might be important, the fact that Yellowstone is in the title. I think it may be a clue to what's coming. While the intent remains to continue the story in Yellowstone, and a source indicated that doing another season was not completely out of the question, the focus ultimately returned to doing it in a new series, I hear. That would allow Paramount Network's Paramount Global to keep the show within the company's ecosystem, unlike the Mothership series, which has a pre-existing exclusive streaming deal with NBC Universal's Peacock. I don't start watching a lot of new shows. I like shows that have long lifespans that I can live in for decades, but I also don't like to get mired down in a lot of series at the same time. Yellowstone is one of those shows that I picked up very, very early in its run. I think the first two-part main episode or premiere episode had aired, and then that following week I caught up and then continued on to watch episode 3, and I've been hooked ever since. Things were riding really high, and then all of a sudden last year, Kevin Costner sort of started this feud with Sheridan, and then he left the show, and everything was sort of up in the air. There's a lot of turmoil about what was going on next. There was talk of a new series featuring Matthew McConaughey. There's, of course, this 4-6's ranch spinoff, and of course Taylor Sheridan, I guess he owns that ranch now, so it seems like there's a high likelihood of shifting towards that location away from Montana. And then, of course, we finally got this second half of season 5, and we saw John Dutton's death, and it seems like things were coming to a close. I'm glad that these characters are going to continue, but I'm a little bit pessimistic on the fact that, what do you do with them next without sort of spoiling the end of this series? And the problem is that Yellowstone has always been about how to preserve this ranch. It seems like you need that story to be wrapped up. But if you wrap it up, what do you do next? Where do you send them? Do you send them down to the 4-6s? I heard there's been some talk of the show not being as welcome as it once was in Montana. And of course, if Sheridan owns land in Texas, it seems like that's probably a good place for them to move. But also, there's this idea that, and I alluded to this earlier in the video about them using the word Yellowstone in the title. Of course, so that sort of ties them to the area near the park. That tells me that you're probably going to stick with that location, which means the ranch is still going to be part of the show. And if it's part of this show, how can you give any sort of conclusion to the season 5 that doesn't feel like it doesn't go far enough? The point being, at some point you have to wrap up. How many times can we see the ranch attacked by these forces trying to separate the family from it for monetary gain? How many times can you do that? Manage to up the ante and not make it feel anticlimactic, knowing that it's never going to be safe. I think at least part of the ranch needs to be saved. I think that Casey and his family need to be able to live happily ever after away from the ranch as he sort of always dreamed. On the other hand, his son is the executor of John Dutton's will and his estate, so he owns that. Makes me think maybe the tribe, maybe they're going to give it to the Indian tribe. I don't know. There's a whole lot of things up in the air. I'm just afraid that in doing this, what's going to happen is we're going to have a direct sequel series to the show, and it's not going to be even airing on television. It's going to be exclusively on Paramount Plus, which I think would be a big mistake. Yellowstone airs on debut night on Paramount Plus and a couple other networks, and the last premiere was like 17 million people on that night, and then within like 3 days, when you included streaming, it boosts the total to like 21 million. So the vast majority of people are watching this show on traditional television. A couple years ago, they started airing back episodes on CBS, and it was still making another 5 or 6 million people. These are all people who don't, subscribe to cable and to streaming. So there's clearly a lot of audience for this show out there in Middle America, and I think that by making it streaming exclusive, as a lot of these other shows have been, would be a big mistake. I'm hopeful that using the title Yellowstone in the title would perhaps involve them being forced to continue to play this game with Peacock. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, because usually what happens is these shows go on for so long, contracts come up, and they change the title of the show just to get out of these contracts so they can renegotiate them at a lower rate for the people who are involved. I'm not sure if that's got anything to do with it. Obviously, the biggest name recognition is in the word Yellowstone. There's probably people out there who don't realize that 1883 and 1923 are part of the same universe. I quite enjoy this entire universe, but I do think it would be a mistake to make it streaming exclusive. Obviously, there's a ton of audience that was built for this show on traditional cable and television, and that's sort of where I'm living at this point. I'm unlikely to ever subscribe to Paramount Plus again. I tried it for like a free week, and I was bored afterwards. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to, seeing what becomes of these characters, but I'm also sort of worried about what do you do with them and where's this all going to wind up. But that's just my thoughts and feelings on this potential Yellowstone spinoff. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will see you again soon.